ready to resume our conference. Please take a seat and we will begin shortly. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Our next panel's discussion focuses on a cutting-edge topic that's transforming the financial landscape: stablecoins and digital assets, legal innovation for cross-border finance, and regulatory implications. As digital assets and stablecoins continues to gain traction globally, this panel will explore how they are reshaping international payment, trade settlements, and remittances. We'll also dive into how tokenized assets and blockchain-based finance can support infrastructure financing, supply chain transparency, and legal harmonization across Belt and Road Initiative countries. Additionally, the panel will address critical legal issues such as due diligence, smart contract enforceability, and cross-border data governance, providing insights into what lawyers and institutions need to know as they navigate this rapidly evolving field. We are privileged to have an exceptional group of panelists joining us today. May I invite Mr. Rocky Moy, partner at Clifford Chance, to the stage. Next, please welcome Mr. John Ho, Head of Legal Financial Markets at Standard Chartered. Joining us is Mr. Sam Lee, founder and CEO of ConStreet. And finally, please welcome Mr. Louis Lee, Managing Director and founder of ProSynergy. Guiding this discussion, we have Ms. Joy Zhang, lead lawyer at ANZ and Vice President of FIDA, who will moderate the panel. Let's dive into these fascinating conversations on the legal innovations and regulatory implications shaping the future of stablecoins, digital assets, and cross-border finance. Please join me in welcoming our panelists and moderator.
Good morning everyone, and welcome back to the second panel today. I hope you all enjoyed the coffee break just now. The topic of this panel, I think everybody will be very interested in, is a very hot topic nowadays: stablecoins and digital assets, legal innovation for cross-border finance, and regulatory implications. So we are now at this pivotal moment in this Hong Kong's financial evolution, right? Because just weeks ago, on the 1st of August, the stablecoin ordinance just passed in effect. So this is like making Hong Kong one of the first jurisdiction internationally implementing a comprehensive regulatory framework for stablecoin. So, according to the press, I think there are like more than 77 institutions applied for it, but apparently, I think we all know only perhaps say 5 to 6 will be able to get it. But then you can see how hot it is right now in terms of like stablecoin, digital assets, and the Hong Kong positioning being, in a frontier or in this space. So this is not just about the regulation, right? This is also about the transformation that I think we are very concerned about, and how to actually make this transformation happen in a good order, in an orderly way, at the same time, good for business, but then from the legal risk perspective, how can we manage that? Regulatory clarity, are we there yet? I think that's the question we are all very interested to know more. And our previous panel also talked about the dispute resolution, which actually set a perfect stage for our discussion here, because dispute resolution actually is about how to enforce, the transactions, and now with this all legal innovation, technology, financial innovations, whether all these like dispute resolutions, enforcement, whether they can be put in place and build that trust in Hong Kong and also across jurisdiction. Tying back to our theme today, in the Belt and Road countries. So are there any opportunities here also for Hong Kong to take the lead in this stablecoin, digital asset? So there are lots to look at. It's not just about being very hot topic here, but I think we are at this intersection of looking at the regulations, the legal risk, the innovation, how can we move forward, but at the same time, perhaps John can also share with us a bit later from an institutional perspective, how can we be more resilient in all these changes and new developments. So I'm Joyce Cheng, I'm a lead lawyer at ANZ Bank, and I'm also the Vice President of FIDA. So very privileged and very thrilled to be able to moderate this panel, because in this panel, I think that the panel here, they have formed a mini ecosystem in this space. So let me introduce our distinguished speakers. Rocky Mui, partner at Clifford Chance, he brings very deep expertise in the virtual asset regulation and cross-border legal frameworks. John, head of legal for financial markets at Standard Chartered, offers a global institutional perspective. So he will also share insights on how banks are navigating the evolving landscape. Sam Lee, founder and CEO of CoinStreet, a pioneer in Web3 and blockchain space. Sam has over 25 years of experience in the digital economy. So under his leadership, CoinStreet has become an award-winning digital asset advisory and financial services firm. Louis, managing director of ProSynergy. He's a former lawyer with 25 years experience in corporate finance and regulator. He co-founded ProSynergy, offering regulatory and compliance solutions, particularly in virtual assets. So let's explore, this. I think to them, this is not a new area, but perhaps for many of you, this is a relatively new area. So let's, deep dive into it. The first question actually is for Sam. Sam has been in the industry and with a business background. So can you share with us, Hong Kong has evolved from a traditional trading port, now become a global financial center, right? But could you share your experience and perspective as to how Hong Kong's historical development and its transformation has shaped its current role? Sam.
Hello. Hi. Thank you. First of all, thank you for having me. It's my great pleasure to be here. My name is Samson Lee, but people call me Sam, and I'm a founder and CEO of CoinStreet. We are 8 years old company, started in 2017. So we do three things. One is asset tokenization. We are SFC Type 1 company doing issuing and distribution of security token, and now called RWA. And then we also license a TCSP company doing crypto custodian on the crypto side. I have involved in the tech industry since the last cycle of the internet cycle. If many of you still remember this company called Tom.com, back in year 2000, I'm one of the IPO team with Kao Zhang at the time for the start, and then Seng Wen come later. What I'm trying to say is we see new technology every day, but the cycle is actually repeating itself. Right? When we look at what's happening now with the blockchain, a lot of similarity with the last big cycle with the internet. Right? For example, when year 2000, I'm sure many of you still remember the dot-com bubble. Right? It's very similar to the ICO bubble in blockchain in 2017. Right? And although we have new technology every day, but human behavior doesn't change much. Right? If you look at the dot-com, after the bubble burst, and then the industry go down, and then the next turning point is 2007, when iPhone come to this world, right? We call that iPhone moment. When iPhone came as the killer application with the App Store and bring the whole industry to a new heights. What I'm trying to say is the cycle is repeating. When the blockchain first come in 2017, quite messy to be honest, the ICO at the time. I'm sure a lot of you legal professional will be very skeptical about crypto at the time, right? But now, guess what? Very coincidentally, 7 years later, or 8 years later until now, we see another tipping point, right? It's the regulation. Because when we talk about tokens, when we talk about investment, we gotta have the legal regulation framework. And now, I think we have enough regulation, right? I think just about right. Maybe Louis can give more, and John can give more insight. But now I think we have enough regulation that could really trigger the turning point of the whole tokenization industry to a new height. So I'm very excited about where we are. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Yeah, Louis.
I think if you talk about current status is, I think Hong Kong in itself, I think we need to innovate. We have been let's say, living on our good old story for quite some time. And I think now is I won't say it's a massive change, but it's an opportunity for us to start something afresh, because we, as I said, been stuck in being the international financial hub for so long. But what is an international financial hub? The digital finance or the blockchain is coming. So I think as an economy like Hong Kong itself, we have to innovate and reinvent ourselves. I think if you talk about trend, I think that to me is the most important as to what we should be doing, be it from an economic point of view and also from a legal point of view. I mean, we need to innovate and see how we could incorporate this new technology into what we do every day.
At the same time, we embrace our history, right? So this is to go through all these cycles is not something new to Hong Kong. We are very good at going through all these new things. But at the same time, we need to jump out of the box and see what we can do more. So Rocky, I think I touched upon about like stablecoin ordinance. So the market is showing a lot of excitement about this. So question for you is, from a private practice legal perspective, how do you think about this? How do you see about this legislation shaping Hong Kong's role as the digital finance hub for, say, in the region and perhaps even in the Belt and Road initiative? How do you think Hong Kong can be positioned? Is it still, as what Louis has mentioned, can Hong Kong actually be taking the lead here, or how we can actually support all these like initiatives across the different countries and legal harmonization? Are you seeing like Hong Kong setting the standard here?
Yeah, because I think it's what we have been seeing. I mean, stablecoin ordinance is definitely an important piece of legislation that Hong Kong came up with. But I think to put things in perspective, it's one of the many initiatives that the government regulators and Hong Kong ecosystem overall put in place. It's important to be reminded that, because I think what's important is for Hong Kong, you've seen the government came out with the position paper. We are looking at the wider digital asset ecosystem. So it's not only just stablecoin, it's not only just Bitcoin, the virtual assets, CBDCs, tokenized deposit, it's all of these and more. So what I think of in terms of stablecoin ordinance, it's an additional tool that Hong Kong can use to provide service globally, whether it's for Belt and Road initiatives or other regimes, and as an international financial center. I think that is very important, because if we look at CBDCs, for example, we have Project Enbridge, which is mainly focusing on the wholesale side of things, cross-border interbank transfer of money settlement. We have tokenized deposit, which really about the banks' deposits to make it more efficient in terms of settlement again. And stablecoin, then we cover another area. The use cases perhaps would be more amongst kind of global corporate groups, the consumer side of things, or trade settlement, for example. So we have different tools, which is important. And what we've seen, in terms of, in particular, the Belt and Road initiative, and also regional as well. So I was down in Southeast Asia with Academy of Finance last year, and we visited quite a few kind of family offices, the big listed companies, and we discussed about the role of Hong Kong. So how can Hong Kong serve them better? And there's a common theme which mentioned there's a lot of demand for financial product and services, in particular on the capital market side. And I think the priorities from their perspective, they're not looking for kind of local establishment and do the retail, etc. That's very welcome. But what they need is the service to help them raise capital, for example, or expand internationally. They see Hong Kong, which is a competitive advantage, which I would agree personally. We have that capital market, we have that experience, we have the talent, we have the framework, we have the infrastructure, we have the connection, and it's all in Hong Kong. Now, obviously, there's always good comparison with Singapore, for example. But I think we have that package, certainly. And back to the theme of digital asset, stablecoin, again, is something that we can look at. And it's, I think bottom line is, if we have the tools, then I think Hong Kong is smart enough. So I think Hong Kong, what we do best is we deliver results. Now, as long as we have the tools, And as long as I have that framework, now we can talk about how difficult it is, or how high standard it is, or maybe low, how it is. But at least we have that. It's a relative permissive regime. So as long as you have that, I think people in Hong Kong is very good at utilizing it and deliver the service. And that's what's quite important for us from a kind of supporting the Belt and Road or other initiative as well.
Yeah, I agree, and I think Hong Kong is actually the traditional positioning of Hong Kong has actually put Hong Kong in quite a good position in all these like developments and things. And I would like to turn the question now to John. John has, in your day job, you are based in Singapore, but I know that in Standard Chartered you also look after the global financial markets business. So I think this is also the interesting part about, from your perspective, from an institutional perspective, what actually, for an institution, they must consider before integrating all this like stable coins, digital assets into, your transaction structures, into the payment system, settlements, what are the key considerations here?
Yeah, I think before I start, I'd like to thank FIDA and to all of you for inviting us to share the session. I think the question you raised is a very good one, but before I answer the question, I just want to sort of highlight the place of Hong Kong where we are. If you look at this building now, this is a historical building. And why are we here after many years is because Hong Kong sits on a very important corridor that when we look at One Belt, One Road as a team here, and also looking at where we are in a legal profession, this is where everything starts. If you look at digital assets, as Sam mentioned, most of the digital assets activities around the world, whether it's come out from the largest exchange in the world like Binance, or OKX, or Huobi, actually started in Hong Kong. If you look at the largest stablecoin issuer, Tether, where did it started? Hong Kong. All roads point to Hong Kong. From the seat of innovation to the seat of legal regulatory landscape. And this is how I tie in. If you look at banks right now, we don't do this for the sake of following speculative trades. We follow large macro movement of institution, not just within corporates, but countries. If you look at Hong Kong these days, it is the largest CNH market outside of China. And the CNH market started here and now have grown to many, many centers. If you look at the ecosystem, right, notwithstanding the tariff that was imposed, the export via Hong Kong, the gateway, have actually increased year on year. What I'm trying to say is Hong Kong is the epicenter of many, many things that happen. It is also resilient. Now, this is how I come in from a legal perspective. When we look at digital assets, the first thing first as lawyers, what actually is the assets? Is it a property? Is it a chattel? Or is it a chose in action? So, for those of you who are touching digital assets and crypto, it's also back to basics as legal professionals. What actually is the legal treatment? Because flowing from the legal certainty of the analysis, the legal treatment, the licensing requirements are tagged according to the legal treatment. For example, if it's a digital assets that are more securities like security token, you got a securities futures ordinance that comes in. As Rocky mentioned, if it's stablecoin, you have your stablecoin ordinance that kicks in on the 1st of August that creates a very clear legal and regulatory and licensing framework for what we want to do. Now, you shouldn't look at digital assets as a separate ecosystem that I don't want to get involved. For those of you who are involved in arbitration, banking, civil litigations, it's all relevant. You got to look at how do I thread the needle as lawyers? Where does it stay very relevant? Because right now, where I sit in the vantage point, Hong Kong is very important to us because I have a large team in Hong Kong with about 20 lawyers looking after anything from traditional finance to digital assets right now. And Hong Kong is where we also cemented our position in digital assets. This is the first place we did our tokenized money market funds this year. The whole of Asia started in Hong Kong. So when we look against that, the legal system, right from legal treatment to property rights, to enforcement rights, to custody rights, and also arbitration, it's important to cement that. So I think you need to think through, okay, it's your assets, I'm only in arbitration, I'm only in banking, I'm only in fiduciary. How do I stay relevant? It's important because as we talk about, we are in an inflection point, and I don't say it lightly because I know Hong Kong government realized that if in order to next driver of this is your digital economy, right? You cannot, it's no longer just a manufacturing hub. It's an artery to the world, not just in commerce, in finance, but in order to cement Hong Kong's position, it's also make sure you have legal certainty, legal clarity, and rules or laws are protected. And all of you have a role to play in this whole legal ecosystem. So as we speak, the first thing we want to do when we look at the asset is, look, can we get a legal opinion? What are our rights? What are the regulations? What are license requirements? In the event of the dispute, how do we enforce or protect our properties and assets? So this is the things that, what I'm saying is, you can't look at it in isolation. Legal profession as a whole plays a key role towards the impetus and driver of digital assets.
Thank you, John. I think this is exactly going to the heart of this question, right? So we are not just talking about like theory anymore. It's not just a fringe concept. When we talked about like digital assets, it's something like very, very cool to talk about. I think it's beyond like being cool here now. So when we are saying, I think there's a common theme just now. Hong Kong is being very well positioned. We've got, the regulation now. We've got use cases. But then turning to Louis, I think you have that sort of quasi-legal and also business background. What do you think about Hong Kong's positioning? Are we really taking the lead here in terms of like harmonizing the digital asset regulations in the region? I think comparing to say Singapore, across the region, BNR, the Belt and Road countries, especially in the area. I think you mentioned, quite emphasized about innovation, about setting standards, promoting the use cases. So in these aspects, what do you think about like Hong Kong's position in comparing to the other countries?
Yes, thanks, Joyce. Perhaps I'm more practical because I deal with the issuers and also banks on a daily basis. I think there's several factors that we need to think about. Yes, I think Hong Kong is at the forefront. We're setting certain standards. We're pushing it not only locally, regionally, we're doing it globally at IOSCO level as well. Was it the same product, same risks, same rules? So we are doing it, but in terms of setting the legal framework, I think it is a trial and error. I mean, there's no easy way of doing it. Singapore go down the route of payment services first. Hong Kong went down the route of security products, security regulation, investment products. And then now it's the stable coin. And then everyone's thinking, oh, is there something that we can learn from it? It's all setting the framework in place. But I think what we should be looking at as well is once you have the legal stuff all out of the way, which I'm sure we all do, the next question is, how do we implement it? I mean, the way I see it is we always hit problems when we start implementing it. From the trading platforms to tokenized securities, there's lots of issues. Operationally, how do we do easy KYA, know your address? How do we make sure we do the KYT, know your transactions? These are things, yes, it may not be legal opinion, so to speak, but this is an important cog in the whole process. You have to understand these operational roadblocks that you need to overcome, and it's not easy as lawyers. Most of us, me included, I must say, we look at documentation. But now you have to move a bit further ahead. We have to understand a little bit of technology. I'm not asking you to be IT expert, but at least you need to know what this technology is all about. How can it help us? I mean, just to give you an example of what we did back in the day, when say 2022, we start discussing with SFC about how do we do tokenized securities or RWAs, as people talk about it now. It's not easy. You talk about, at that moment, we want to tokenize, let's say, an aircraft. Yes, it could be done, but what are the issues that you're going to face? What are the difficulties? How are we going to go about it? And then in the end, who are your customers, your clients? Nobody is interested because nobody knows what the hell you're doing at the moment. Then we switch, oh, can we actually tokenize a contract, being the aircraft finance? Again, could be done. But then when you approach your clients, they said, we're not interested. In the end, I think it ended up that we just tokenize the LPF partnership rights. The LPF went to acquire an SPV, the SPV then acquired the airplane, then leased it out, and then the income stream went up, and we tokenized that partnership right, as I said. But these are trial and error that you have to go through, you know, at least we did it, and hopefully we can bring the experience to other people, because I think it is an important journey to have for every single institution, be it lawyers, be it, you know, actual issuers, or even Sam and myself doing consultancy. It's a lot of trial and error because it's a bit of an oasis out there, but at least we know in Hong Kong we got good legal framework, there are good systems in place, we have the arbitration center, as you mentioned, and we got good legal professionals here to help out. I think that's a very important thing for Hong Kong to do, to promote.
How about you, Sam? What do you think about the trial and error? You know, you've been in the industry for so long, so perhaps you can share a bit more with us as well.
Yeah, I'm more from the business side. I'm not like a legal professional like many of you. And by the way, I love your comment. Adding to that, crypto.com also start from Hong Kong, right? So it's amazing exchange now. So when we look at the business point of view, right, we step back. I often like to use the reference to the internet, right? Because why? Because I want you to feel what we talk about, the blockchain and all, is really not that far away. It's like internet we use every day, right? Now, if we look at bigger perspective, the number of crypto wallet globally is reaching about 1 billion, right? Back then, if you look at the internet user, you still remember, right? Back then, the people in the newspaper always talk about which country have how many internet user. When does it reach 1 billion internet user? Is around 2005, 2006, right? So you can imagine, we are not late, we're very early, right? You remember 2005, Amazon is just a bookstore, right? Online bookstore. So none of you are late. You're actually very early, all of us, right? So, but where do we go? From the business point of view, we talk about this panel is stablecoin and digital asset. Stablecoin, the concept is not new, right? Every one of us, we're using, like, in terms of the concept of stablecoin, we're at least using 2 stablecoin every day. You think about it. Hong Kong dollar is a stablecoin, right? 30 years plus link exchange system. $1 US goes in, 7.8 comes out, right? Your octopus is a stablecoin, right? You're actually spending octopus money 1-to-1, you don't think about it, right? And then octopus doing all the settlement. But now it's on the blockchain, right? Why is it a big deal? Because the blockchain is a global settlement system, right? It's not going through SWIFT anymore. They're doing the settlement for the payment token like stablecoin. They're doing the clearing system like the stock exchange clearing stock with now the security tokens and the RWA tokens, right? So now we look at, like in the internet, people put things online on the World Wide Web. Everybody can put online. But now everybody can put the digital asset on chain, onto the blockchain. This decentralized system, doesn't matter which chain, right? Ethereum, Cardano, Solana, they all works more or less the same consensus. It's a decentralized system. Nobody's control, right? It's all by consensus. So where does Hong Kong stand? This is very important because everybody can put stuff online. So with a good legal system, a trusted international brand name, right? So with this legal system, the tokens that we issue under the Hong Kong legal framework that we are putting on chain will have high recognition globally to the global investor, right? And hopefully if we do this good enough, we can attract all the good projects all over the world come to Hong Kong to issue stablecoin and RWA and security tokens, right? If we look at the traditional financial system like Hong Kong stock market, only 10 to 20% of the listed companies from Hong Kong, right? A lot of from China or overseas. So hopefully we can find our space, our position in this space globally.
Yeah, thank you, Sam, and thank you, Louis. I think this is about the development, and in this development, progressing the development, there's a lot of trial and errors, and I can also see that the legal sector is a part that we can't actually, not do anything. So turning to Rocky, so how about like, in terms of when I had a preparation chat with you, I think there's a lot of issues that are still actually, ongoing about like the classification, licensing. Actually, I think John also touched upon, how to categorize the different assets. So in terms of like, say, the legal due diligence, what are you seeing do you think the current legal due diligence is sufficient to help out like the client, say Standard Chartered Bank or other institution, when they would like to handle all these, complex transactions or new, and perhaps is a new use case, is a new setup. So how that legal due diligence and other legal analysis can assist them.
Because I think in terms of legal DD or legal compliance regulatory, I think as a well-trained lawyer, all of us in the room, it's actually quite interesting. Our minds are trained that way to be able to perform similar analysis. Obviously, what we're looking at may be something very new, maybe not completely new. There are a lot of similarities as to the digital asset side of things. There will be something new, but this may not be completely different. The way we look at it, so I think for digital assets, it's not only about the legal analysis, which is very important, but we do need to work with the clients, whichever role they play, or the issuer, to work on the overall business objective as to what they try to achieve. I think that is very important in the first instance, because with digital assets, we really have a lot of flexibility in terms of what we try to build, what the features, what it represents. There are a lot of possibilities. And then once we build whatever is a product or is a service, then we can find a jurisdiction, and then there are the ancillary activities around. If you have a token, who's the custodian, who's the issuer, who's the distributor, and then secondary trading, do we find an exchange, do we do OTC? The possibilities goes on and on. So I think for the due diligence, which is extremely important, but we do have to work with the issuer side together to work out what they want. And sometimes they may have a good idea as to what they need. They are very specific. Some of them have a general idea, and then we have to work through the variables. Just to give you an example, if we talk about RWA, Louis mentioned, there are a lot of different possibilities. What is the actual underlying asset? Or is it an asset? What is that asset? Are we tokenizing the income stream? Are we tokenizing the actual ownership from a legal perspective? Is it legal title we are tokenizing, or is it beneficial title we are tokenizing? If we talk about real estate, for example, now, generally speaking, it's ideal. If I have a token, it represents a fractional ownership in that property. Now, is it possible from a real estate law perspective? Now, are there formalities we need to follow when we actually work on contracts or documents involving land? Do we need deeds? Can we do smart contracts? Are we able to do e-signatures, or we actually need wet ink when we sign deeds? Stamp duty, how does it work? So all these questions, and okay, are we actually tokenizing the land, or okay, let's just get a company to buy it. It's very common in Hong Kong, and then just tokenize the company. Now, there are all sort of different thinking and variables. Now, real estate is just one example, and what's in Hong Kong could be very different in other jurisdictions, and endless possibilities. We've looked at carbon credits, we've looked at loans, we look at income streams. It could be a rental income, car parks, whatever you name it, or just general businesses. So all that will be quite important. And then after that, then it's actual underlying product. Then we look at services, issuers, and then the wider ecosystem. But just one thing about what I mentioned, it could be quite similar, is if we just tokenize a bond, for example. So the SFC has different definitions. So the tokenized securities definition comparing to digital securities, which if we have time, we can talk more about it. But it's pretty much, it's a traditional instrument, but you just build a tokenized wrapper, technology wrapper. So the underlying is pretty similar, and there's this technology twist. There will be some nuance, but a lot of the legal thinking, okay, what licenses do I need? How do I market it? You pretty much follow the existing securities framework with the add-ons from whatever tokenization rules may have. The SFC has specific circulars requirements, but largely riding on the traditional security side of things. And then you just expand it from jurisdiction. So this is what we're kind of looking at right now.
Thank you, Rocky. So talking about like the legal implementation and the business objective, Louis, do you have anything to add?
I think, right on what Rocky said, I think an important point is to ask your clients about what's the business objective here. A lot of people that we encounter, they think there is a secondary market. Once you tokenize everything, that's a wrong idea to have. So I think back to the drawing board, you have to start thinking about if a client approach you, talk about tokenization, you have to tell them upfront what exactly are you doing first. I mean, the tokenization process is still relatively expensive compared with normal legal documentation. That's for sure. But the price is coming down. So you have to balance all the costs as to what's more beneficial to you. What are we going to do? I mean, we received a inquiry from, I think, a Thai company saying, I want to tokenize trade receivables because getting like bank loans may be a bit more expensive. Can we go the tokenization route? Yes, but how are you going to structure it? How are you going to do it? In the end, it works out not that much benefit, and also the audience, i.e. your target clients, may not understand what they're buying into. There's not legal certainty as yet on that particular token that we discussed. So back to a point is, we need to have a think about what's the business case, whether there is economies of scale achieved, and also education, because the clients may not know what they're buying into. They're used to buying a stock, they're used to buying a bond, they're used to buying, a fund. But if I buy a token, what am I buying into? I have to put, as Sam said, yes, it's a lot of wallets now. But what is a wallet? I remember, was it back in 2019, I remember I attended a court case. I remember the judge was asking, oh, what's a e-wallet? So he said, is it like any wallet that we're holding? It was that back then. Now I think it's a bit more advanced, obviously, but it's a lot of education still to do. I mean, for Hong Kong, even worldwide, to really adopt this, it's a long process. But as lawyers, I think we have to start thinking what we should be doing down the line. I mean, Rocky brought a good point about we are not there yet in terms of tokenized securities and digital securities. I would love to bring that up, because the stablecoin thing to me is interesting, because you start thinking about, actually, can we put the whole product cycle, let's say bonds, can we put it all on the chain, from subscription to redemption, all on the chain, all the terms, conditions built on the chain itself? It is a possibility, but you need to do all the smart contract audit, you need to go for SFC, etc., the public offering. Yes, but that process, you eliminate all the friction within the financial industry. Some people in the financial industry may not like it. Let's say the BNY Mellon of this world, the Euroclear of this world. But it's a new process that we have to start thinking about whether it's possible. I think that's the main thing. It's time to innovate. You have to start thinking out of the box a bit and discuss with the bankers and the lawyers of this world as to, oh, is it a possibility that we can do it?
Thank you, Louis. Actually, I think this is a very natural segue to the next question to John. So with your background... Sam, welcome, please.
So I really agree with what you said. So I want to give an example, right? Innovation is very important. So again, back to the internet example, right? You think about internet in the early days, when you ask a company, what is your internet strategy? They will say, I will put my company brochure online. Right? You remember those days, right? Like you go to websites, all the company brochure, HTML, that's it. This is where we are. When we talk about tokenization, people just put the existing financial product on chain. You look stablecoin, my personal opinion is no innovation. You put like a crypto US dollar, right? US dollar 1-to-1 on chain. What's happening now, I think from now on, is we're going to see a lot of new financial product that doesn't exist before but they look at the blockchain, they look at the global settlement system and create new financial products that we haven't seen yet.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think this is exactly why I would like to turn the question to John, right? With an institutional background, I know that you are looking after the global business of financial markets and Standard Chartered, and you also have a lot of engagement with the regulators. So now hearing like from Rocky, from Louis, from Sam, talking about all these like balancing, right? From the legal perspective, but then also the business side of things, and then the objectives. I'm sure there will be lots of business pressure as well, you know, from Standard Chartered as well. But then, what are the key risks that you are seeing, and how do you balance them? You know, when there's rolling out of a new product or a new transaction.
Yeah, I think in terms of innovation, as lawyers, when we look at it, when we analyze this, is don't look at labels, right? As lawyers, we analyze the substance of the structure. We look at what actually it is, not the nomenclature, but whether it comes with legal rights, because the word tokenization doesn't mean anything. It's a generic term where you have a digital representation of assets. But if you look at the tokenization model, there are three different models. One tokenization model, which is very basic, is no different from your ledger. Just create a ledger of what you have, right? And the old world of doing issuance to transfer doesn't change. The middle layer of a tokenization is what we call digital twin. It's just a mirror image of what you do. Slightly better, but not really backtracking. The extreme end of tokenization is where the asset does not exist in the real world. This is what we call digital native. Right? For example, Bitcoin doesn't exist in the real world, it exists on the blockchain. And increasingly, there are certain types of assets like the NFT, non-fungible tokens, as Rocky mentioned, tokenize the carbon credits. So we need to look at it, what exactly is the rights, what property rights, what ownership, what form it takes from a legal perspective. And you all have the set skills here, right? You just got to apply that into the ecosystem. Now, to your point about the legal risk and all that, I just want people to say when we analyze legal regulatory risk, we go back to basics. What exactly is the assets or the underlying? You know, what risk that becomes, but if it comes to payment, one of the concerns we're looking at is, do you have settlement or payment finality? If you pay right now in the banking ecosystem, there's clear legislation, the payment is irrevocable, it's settled. You don't have to worry about recovery, it's payment is a payment. But when it comes to certain types of unregulated space, will the transfer of payment be irrevocable? That's something we're going to look at, the underlying contracts, the network, the rules, to form that legal basis. You know, that's important. And the other thing is talk about assets. There's a difference between you owning the assets and you owning a derivative of the assets. You own a derivative, you don't own the underlying assets. You might not even have legal and beneficial ownership. If you look at Japan, they just set up a Bitcoin fund. But what they didn't tell you is, the person buying the fund, you don't have a legal and beneficial ownership. You have what we call an equitable ownership. So you've got to look at the fine print. What actually is your investor or your client buying into? What rights they have? Because it means different things to different people. And this is where, as litigation lawyers, arbitration lawyers, you build in arbitration clauses. Because especially in a decentralized world, when it comes to disputes, your location of where you arbitrate is not clear. You've got to put that in. If you look at UK Judicial Task Force, one of the recommendations is, if you do a bilateral transaction, is to ensure clear, you know, what is the governing law, where's the place of disputes. If you're going to put arbitration, you've got to put in where is the seat of arbitration. Is it London? Is it Hong Kong? Is it Singapore? That have to be baked in. Right? Coming back to the point, why I want to emphasize is also education. This space is also ripe for a lot of scams, speculations, but at the end of the day, we need to educate ourselves, because the world of tokenization, digital assets is moving very, very fast. By the time you buy a book, the book is outdated, to be fair. You still have the basics, but the world moves very, very quickly. The way to adapt is obviously a combination of reading, learning, and nothing beats actually doing a transaction or project with your client, because then you learn through that whole ecosystem. Now, to the point of innovation, right? This year, Hong Kong FinTech Festival will come with surprises. Right now, I'm under embargo, I cannot say a lot of things, but this is not the similar, oh, let's song and dance, that's it. You know why? Hong Kong is the sandbox for China. A lot of activities that China are not doing onshore are being done here. You have all the largest China entities doing one belt, one road, right from trade finance, banking, e-commerce, and also cementing CNY as the internationalization currency of the world. That is happening. Where is it happening? Hong Kong. So if you want to be in the space of payments, if you want to be based on trade finance, if you want to be based on wealth management, Hong Kong is not just an important sector, it is also a gateway into what you can possibly see in terms of innovation. And I think for all of us lawyers, we need to look at it. How can I deploy my legal skills to apply to the ecosystem that is changing? You will see an intersection between your traditional finance and the digital finance. And you don't have to pivot from a litigation lawyer to a banking lawyer, conveyancing lawyer to do something else. That world will intersect. You just have to apply and be ready to apply your legal skills when the time comes. The issue is not if it will happen. The issue is how fast it will happen. And I'm not talking about theory. I'm obviously in an intersection where not only have I sit in my day job as a banker or a lawyer, I actually been invited to many countries behind closed doors talking about regulations. Last week I was invited by the government of Liechtenstein, with a lady that reports directly to the Prime Minister of Liechtenstein. As you know, Liechtenstein, if you walk around your building, what do you see? Wealth management, private banking in the heart of Hong Kong. Why they're looking at it is, how do I cement Liechtenstein for the next digital world for private banking, wealth management, and they want to learn from us. They want to know what's happening around the world. They want to know where movement of trade, finance, and payment are. More importantly, they want to know what laws they need to change to adapt to finance. And that's why in this session, we're not just sharing for the sake of sharing. The takeaway here is, how do you play in the ecosystem? All of you have a role. The question among yourselves is, how do I position myself to leverage on the skill that all of you have? When the time comes, it's not if, the tide will move very fast. Those that seize on the opportunity will gain the best leverage, not just personally, but within their organization.
Let me follow up with you with a question. So what do you think will be the challenges? So getting ready is one thing, but what do you see is the challenges? When we get ready, how can we overcome those challenges?
I think the most important is also, depending on the level of your thing, it's about education. You got to understand this ecosystem and read and know it. I mean, for me personally, 6 years ago, I'll be in the audience sitting there not knowing what's going on, right? But if it comes with a passion of learning stuff, the passion of educating your clients, follow where your clients are doing, be with them, you will learn very fast, right? Because this space is not about you reading a book, you can do it. It's about doing it in the journey with your client.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think something to add is, what we have done, I mean, Rocky and myself, we've been involved in projects together. Actually, what we applied is existing laws and regulations. Okay, we have new laws on stablecoin for sure. But what have we done in terms of tokenized securities, or even when we discuss digital securities? It's actually the same rules, the same laws as well. But how you apply to the new economy, I think that's the point. Similar to what John is saying, I went to see the Securities Commission of Malaysia, last week, and the week before, discussing different stuff. I literally tell them, to change the laws may take a longer time. But what can we make use of the existing, or how can we push the limits a bit? You have to engage the regulators. You tell them, okay, this is what we're thinking. We think this can fit in, let's say, with our laws, with a bit of innovation in how we interpret it. The regulators is willing to listen. It's no point us just closing our doors and just don't discuss with the regulators. I actually want, lawyers like ourselves to be more open and discuss with the regulators. What have we got in our mind? And we did a recent project on structured products recently. The thing we did behind the scenes, the hedging part, is all smart contract. It is quite innovative. I'm gagged a bit as to what we did behind the scenes, but it took a bit of time for the regulators in Hong Kong to understand what's going on, and we managed to get the message through. It's not as though they are so conservative. They are actually willing to listen. But the thing is, they need people like us, people like you, and people like Sam to approach the regulators. But if you don't approach the regulators and ask them a question, actually give them a solution first. I mean, when I was in the SFC, I really do not want people to come to ask me questions. I want you to present a solution in front of me and say, hey, that makes sense. Maybe that will need a little bit of tweak here and there, and it works. So I think, I would not think that we should be staying behind. We actually have to make use of what we have now. Existing rules and regulations do work. I mean, these basic concepts are all there. It's just how we apply it. I think that's an important point.
Yeah, because I think that's exactly right. What Louis mentioned, we should be bringing the solutions or options or what we think it could be, and have that discussion with the regulator. Because I think one last thing we want to do as a kind of industry as a whole, we can't just place reliance on regulator and then we just receiving end. And because it's a completely new process. A lot of things are new. The regulators definitely, they are learning as well. And that is why there are new laws, because there may be some gaps involved. So it's a continuing process. And what I appreciate in Hong Kong is the regulators, they do genuinely like to discuss with us, actually, and with the industry as well. And I think that is a good point. Now, whether everything gets launched, gets passed is another thing. Obviously, regulators, they have their own perspective that they need to cover from a risk management perspective. But I think it's important. We as lawyers, we know the law, we know the regime. So we should also take the proactive approach in terms of discussing options, possibilities, not just with our clients, but also with regulators as well.
So talking about like transparency, do you think now there's a shift in terms of how like stable coins, tokenized finance is being used to finance, in the different transactions? Do you see there's shifting, or is it still, a bit here and there? Are you seeing a shifting? I'm talking about like the trend now, and I think many of you also mentioned about like RWA. So, with a view of the relevance of RWA, do you think it's actually making the market more transparent, or what's the situation? So can you also comment on that? I'm throwing out to maybe John.
Yeah, one area that you're looking at in Hong Kong is your money market funds. Hong Kong started beginning of the year, there's 0 tokenized money market funds. Right now there are 6 or 7, and there's more going to come, right? And Hong Kong is not going to just complete and tokenized money for funds. What you're going to see is similar to what US is doing right now. 2 weeks ago, the US Securities Exchange Commission and the CFTC jointly came out with a statement. They want to make US a capital markets of the world by allowing 24/7 trading in securities. How can you do that now? You can't, because if you look at large value payment, if you look at scheduled holidays, especially on weekends, you can't trade because large movements of money via SWIFT, you can't do it on a weekend or a scheduled holiday. But do you know what they're going to do? They said, no, we want to complement the current infrastructure, but building on it, leveraging on cryptographic technology or DLT or any other emerging technology to allow people to trade 24/7 US stock securities in the future. That is their vision. Now, Hong Kong is also moving to that direction. If you look at it right now, we're not talking about crypto here. We're not talking about Hong Kong is one of the largest stock exchange in the world. In Asia, definitely is the case. If you look at Hong Kong this year, it's been a stellar year for Hong Kong Stock Exchange. But what's next? Hong Kong wants to make the stock exchange also to be traded in the future T+0, or not just that. If you want to trade on the weekend, on a trade on a holiday, notwithstanding it now will be as liquid, they are trying to enable that. So that is also the next leg as well. So you got to think in that space where the future of your real world assets also exists in a digital form via tokenization. And that is why when Sam mentioned using an example of all the different cycle, we are still in the early innings, the early cycle, a next wave. The question is, are you catching the wave?
Yeah, I just want to mention before Sam chimes in, I think we have to plan ahead a bit. What's your short and medium term goals? I always like to ask that question on my clients. If you think that I can do a tokenization of real world asset now and make a big, huge jump out in my profits, that's not your goal. That's the long-term goal. You have to think about in terms of what products you can bring in short to medium term. The money market funds is a very good example. It's something that could be achieved in a very short-term goal. But what's the long-term goal here? We have to plan ahead. I haven't got a magic ball myself, crystal ball myself, but you have to start thinking in terms of your product cycles and what assets you have on hand. What could be done? Not everything could be tokenized. Don't get me wrong here. I'm not trying to drum up, make a good story out of everything. You have to start doing the analysis to what could be tokenized and make it into real world. And to use another example, rather than using the internet bubble, you think about it. 10, 20 years ago, would you imagine you actually have a pocket encyclopedia to walk with you out in the street? Because that's what we have now. We can actually have an encyclopedia with us and in the car and ask our car, can you search for my direction, everything? Everything is so convenient. And now it's in terms of financial products innovation. Before it's not about, I have to approach a banker, we have to meet a banker and do what we can with my money and my investments. Going forward, what could be done? It could be done on a chain. It could be done like P2P maybe, but we have to start thinking what's next. So we have to start thinking and planning ahead with the new technology, would it help us in a little bit in terms of the product cycle? Where can it monetize and help us along the way? I think that's a thinking that not only the clients, but as lawyers, I think we have to start thinking.
Yeah, I totally agree. This is the timing is very important. So back to John's comment earlier, global 24/7 trading, right? I just looked it up. I was not checking WhatsApp, but I actually looked it up, the Bitcoin transaction. Now every day, actually over 500,000 Bitcoin change hands. That's like $60 billion US every day, 24/7 without a bank. Literally, it could be mainly stablecoin transaction, right? But that's the liquidity we are talking about, just for one Bitcoin. Imagine if we tokenize all the different assets in the world, right? Asset tokenization is different from traditional stock, but because stock is just equity, right? Now we can tokenize so many things like trade finance, money market fund, alternative asset, gold mine, anything, right? So that's the magnitude, and I think people picking it up now because US actually leading the way, right? With you see the Trump administration is all in, right? And the reason we actually got one of the first license in Hong Kong doing asset RWA issuing. At the time, it's called security tokens, right? We are type 1 issuing and distribution, but nobody is doing it, right? We're going around town trying to educate different issuer, trying to do the STO project. But now, all of a sudden this year, the wind changed, right? With a new term of RWA. And why? Right? We have defense to Trump. Like, from my personal opinion, right? I might be wrong. Seriously, I see this change right after Trump administration, right? Because he's totally pushing the stablecoin and digital asset. And our central government is already also very smart, right? Like you look at the world and say, hey, you know, we have to do something on the stable coin as well. And that's why we are with all the wonderful stablecoin regulations. And with all the new liquidity created from the stablecoin, right? Everyone knows our central government never tried to promote cryptocurrency. They don't want to see all the liquidity from stablecoin going into Bitcoin and Ethereum and all this cryptocurrency trading. So in parallel is actually bring up the importance of RWA. Right? The government actually want to see the liquidity going into real world business and completing the ecosystem. So I think now we have a very good system that we can walk in parallel with two legs.
Rocky, perhaps final word from you. What do you think from a lawyer's perspective? What can we do more to actually embrace the innovation, but then to ensure there is legal certainty, being responsible, and also drive this growth and cross-border connectivity?
Yeah, I think just as a lawyer is to stay curious and open-minded, because all these are relatively new. Now, I don't claim myself to be a technology expert. You don't need to know how to write codes and everything. As I imagine simply, I don't need to know how the internet works for me to use it, but I can advise on how my clients want to use the internet on whatever legal system is. So if anything, I also have a kind of our associates around the globe as well. It's okay, I have nothing, I don't know anything about tech. Tokenization sounds too techy. Should I get involved? There are a lot of things which goes back to, as I mentioned before, the legal thinking is very similar. We're all very well trained to do all this, to advise all this. So we're all very well equipped. And the technology kind of, it's good to understand the underlying, great. But if you don't like me, I don't know how to write codes, as long as you understand how to use it, which we all know how to use the internet and all the different apps and everything, social media in particular. So that's all still, I think, just keep an open mind and have that dialogue, be involved with the industry, regulators and ecosystem, and I think that will be important.
Thank you, Rocky, and thank you, everyone. So I think one question, see if there is any question from the floor. I'm trying to, beat the time. I think we have 1 minute left. Any question from the floor? Oh, Willa. Yeah, just ask it from your chair. Yeah, I think we can hear it.
I was thinking, do you guys think the Hong Kong Stock Exchange could actually launch a new business line for cryptocurrency and also all these tokens on the RWA tokens, in addition to traditional funds? And how would this rock the market? Because if you look at Hong Kong Stock Exchange now, it's the monopoly exchange of traditional securities. But why hasn't it has the most mature clearing and settlement system. It has the most robust compliance and legal framework. Why does it not launch? Why hasn't it launched this business line?
This is a point actually we discussed just now in the coffee during the coffee break. Who want to take it?
I can mix it. I think I think we ought to put things in perspective. What the exchange is very good at is the traditional financial market. We have a very efficient, as we mentioned before, our capital market works perfectly. Now, obviously, and personally I do agree, we should focus on that. We should focus on that. Now, whether they're exploring, I'm sure they are exploring. And whether they go out like other exchanges, we've heard Australia, ASX has been looking at this, trying to launch it. US are talking about it. There are a lot of plannings, and in terms of just shifting that goes to the underlying tech, and that's what I understand. To do it and try to sync it is not that simple. So it's a big step for them. Now, obviously in Europe, the Euroclear and the likes, they are all looking at this already. Now, Hong Kong, whether it's the exchange, we also have the CMU, whether it's better for that, because AMU for the tokenized green bonds, Hong Kong has been utilizing that platform as well. So there are different kind of stakeholders in Hong Kong that could look at different areas. But now, as far as I'm here, we're not going to launch, exchange is not going to launch it overnight. But I think for Hong Kong overall, that is what we need. And we also have the virtual asset trading platform. Now, obviously, there's the big question on how do we deal with the actual securities exchange. As you mentioned, there's the monopoly. So it's all in the pipeline, and I think it's that's one of the areas the overall ecosystems find a equilibrium in terms of how we're going to balance the next steps.
Yeah, I think the question is Hong Kong Stock Exchange the right partner to have in this? I mean, I'm being open. I think having competition against Hong Kong Stock Exchange is a good thing for me personally. I think it's more like, from an industry point of view, the crypto asset or digital asset sort of industry is, have we been talking to government about this? Yes. Would there be change? We hope so. So it's a matter of whether we present the right case for the government and the right laws to put in place to make sure if there is trading, let's say even 24-hour stocks, okay, on the token side, or any other security products could be done other than on the Stock Exchange of Hong Kong. I mean, I think they need competition. And I think still, to me, the Hong Kong Stock Exchange is the premier sort of exchange in Hong Kong still, but there are room for other people to come in to fill the gap, which I think the others are trying to do right now.
Just adding to the stock exchange question. So I think now the stock exchange trading the ETF product, right? Because ETF product is sort of like a one-to-one relationship. It's just like in a security format. But back to John's earlier question, right? If you buy an ETF, you don't actually own the Bitcoin, right? You take a position, and it's a one-to-one relationship. There's no leverage, right? So I think a more interesting product the stock exchange to look at is the derivative products, like a call warrant or put warrant on Bitcoin, right? But they are like, you know, a lot of the license exchange like OSL is trying to do that, but they're having some issue with the SFC. But I think that might be more interesting.
Yeah, I think what we will see is more ETF futures market. If you look at in Japan, they already announced they want to do a Bitcoin futures, Singapore exchange as well. I think this is where you got institutional demand with that. So it's an evolution, not a revolution, right? I think parting shot here is hopefully this sharing is important, because the reason why we're sharing with you is not trying to sort of put you at such a level that, wow, there's so many things. But what I'm saying is you have the basic legal expertise. It's about leveraging it to your strength, and also watching the space, because the intersection between traditional finance and the new digital finance will converge very soon.
Thank you. Let's give our speakers a big round of applause. Thank you. Thank you, Rocky. Thank you, John, Sam, and Louis. As you can see, I'm a very lucky moderator. Thank you for our speakers for giving a very rich and thought-provoking discussion here, and they went autopilot. So thank you so much. I'm so lucky to, have our esteemed speakers, and thank you once again. And lunch is downstairs waiting for you all guys. I will let Susan to guide you to lunch.
Thank you, our panelists and moderator, for their contribution. Before we wrap up, I'd like to take a moment to mention that in celebrations of FIDA's 50th anniversary, we have prepared special commemoratory gifts for all of you. This includes a beautiful brooch and a FIDA branded t-shirt, which we hope will serve as a lasting moment of the milestone event. To place your order for this item, please fill out the order form included in your souvenir bag. If you want to have a look at the t-shirt, Angela is holding up for you to have a look at that. And please also be reminded that in order to obtain CPD points, you will have to scan the QR codes and fill in the attendance form. Our IT technician is